What conspiracy theory did your parents have growing up that affected your life? My mom always made me cover my eyes during the please silence your cell phone part before a movie because she said it contained subliminal messaging that would make me spend more money, drink more soda, etc. Didn't affect my life much except my friends thought I was weird when I would duck and cover in a panic before a movie started. My mom bought into the whole satanic messages hidden in rock songs stuff, and both my mom and dad were at some point convinced that magic cards, Magic, the Gathering, the trading card game, were used as a gateway to the dark arts. Back then, booster packs came with these little deck building guides. I had one for how to build the deck of Eternal Damnation, with gems like black magic destroys creatures outright, and red magic will inflict damage, and they forced me to get rid of my cards. Although I was sufficiently late to MTG that I didn't have any of the classic valuable famous cards like Black Lotus, the various Mox cards, or Birds of Paradise. Got you beat. My mom threw away Final Fantasy VII because the case had a picture of Sephiroth standing in fire. She literally said that only the devil can stand in flames and not be hurt, and threw the discs away in front of me. She didn't have anything against Big Pharma, but my mother wasn't as convinced that natural remedies work better than actual medicine. We saw doctors, but instead of filling prescriptions we would go to GNC to get ginkgo biloba and turmeric. My mom wouldn't let me read the Harry Potter books because the spells might be real magical words, and as a Christian, I wasn't allowed to let the devil in like that. That was the only reason I couldn't read them, and I read plenty of other fictional works. If I curse I'll have a black tongue, so I never did, until I saw people who cursed a lot and didn't have a black tongue. It's true, chow dogs curse like sailors. My parents were certain that the world was ending soon. The scenario would change based on whatever was hot at the time. Comets, Y2K, riots, Antichrist, etc. I still have trouble making real plans cause what's the point if I'm gonna be dead raptured running a post-apocalyptic gang? Your parents reminded me of a story that always makes me cringe. A girl broke up with her fiancé in 2011 because the world was ending in 2012 and she didn't want her children to be part of the end. God, I hope she wakes up everything with the knowledge that she is a dumbass. Mom thought Pokemon stood for Pocket Demon and wouldn't let me play it. It was until middle school, when I started doing the crap my parents wouldn't let me, that I realized that it was such a safe kiddie series. Sat them down and watched an episode of Pokemon and I got Pokemon Diamond for my birthday. I'm completely obsessed with the series now. I wish that I could have participated in the 90s Pokemon craze though. She wasn't too far off. Pokemon is a combination of pocket and monsters. I think my dad only believes in one conspiracy theory, and it only emerged after my sister and I were well past childhood. He thinks that Ramau brand suitcases are being targeted by rival luggage companies, who pay airport baggage handlers to damage the bags. That's why he spends money on more expensive alternative brands. I mean, sure, the quality is BIFL I suppose, but it's one of the dumbest freaking conspiracies I've ever heard of. This is now my favorite conspiracy theory. As a kid, I wasn't really a reader but had a good reading level that my mom tried everything to get me to read. One day she gives me the first Harry Potter book and I couldn't put it down. I became obsessed with it. This was around the time the first movie came out, so I got the trading cards, the games, and anything else related to the franchise. To when the fifth book comes out my mom buys it for me. I am in the midst of reading it, a repair guy comes over and informs my mom that he feels demons and a presence in the home. He asks my mom, is there anything Harry Potter related in the home? She says yes, and he advises her to get rid of it all so that he can bless the home. I stopped reading altogether and she was confused about it and tried to get me to read other books. It wasn't what I wanted and therefore I hated reading again. Also, as a result of this, I've only seen the first 3 Harry Potter movies and then the last 2. I have no recollection of what happens in the story, so I would like to see all of the movies in sequential order with no ads, so I'll pass on Freeform's Harry Potter marathons. I collected rocks when I was young. My mom threw away the pumice rocks I had from Hawaii when she felt an evil presence in my room. Hawaiian spirits were not to be messed with. Our pastor had to throw oil around our house before I could sleep in my room again. My dad was an anti-vaxxer before all this hype. This was in the 70s and 80s. Good thing my mom snuck us to the hospital and got us all our vaccines. That being said, my dad's stupidity and Illuminati conspiracy theories drove us insanely mad. He also would never allow us to go to crowded areas because that was usually where the bombs would explode according to him. This was way before 9/11 attacks and all the other ones that came after. You name a conspiracy, my dad lapped it up. Doomsday, Illuminati, sovereign citizen. The doomsday stuff fricked me up. Whenever anyone mentions a need to buy precious metals because the dollar is about to stop existing, I get an anxiety attack. My father believes that all endangered species are a myth, especially polar bears. He is convinced that news of endangered species is some sort of convoluted plot by the liberals to use guilt to steal his hard-earned money. He isn't sure exactly how the liberals intend to profit from these animals, but he knows that they've got a plan. Let the bears pay the bear tax. I pay the homer tax. My dad is awaiting a terrorist attack where all power grids in the US are shut down, resulting in no electricity anywhere for a long period of time. Because of this, our basement is fully prepped as a survival shelter to evade the murders, looting, madness, etc. that will ensue. It's affected me in a way to always be prepared for anything, but has also instilled a nagging anxiety in me to expect the worst from everyone. On the bright side, if crap goes down, I'm set. Trick-or-treating was a no-go because my mum was sure that it was all poisonous. Even though there has literally never been a case of a stranger giving out contaminated candy. Purest paranoia. That if I don't cover my feet when sleeping or walk on cold water barefoot, I'll get sick. I've even had an ice bath and my mother still believes it. Not my dad though. I wasn't allowed to keep my cell phone in my pockets, but had to have it in my backpack or alike. My mother believed the cellular networks cause cancer conspiracy. I never got the 6 inches and thin clothes make a difference logic usually associated with that. Therapy and special ed classes makes you look incredibly dumb. I needed it more and more as I got older, but my parents refused. My mom used to threaten to take me to therapy as a punishment and it really fricked me up and made it hard for me to take that step when I needed it. I couldn't express my opinions about politics near my dad because he believed that the government was carefully watching us all the time because we are Muslim. I checked to see if that's true, then something Snowden. My parents are doomsday preppers, so I have this thing about having more stuff than I need in case of disaster. When in moderation, this is a pretty good thing, particularly if you live in a disaster-prone area, tornadoes in the Midwest, etc. The CDC, for example, has a variety of helpful guidelines on what to stock for a variety of disaster scenarios. Believed that microwaves irradiated food and removed all the nutrients. I know this to be false but still don't own a microwave. How this just jogged a memory I had completely forgotten. My dad was really strict about how near we stood to the microwave when it was on. He said he knew a chef that would lean on the kitchen microwave while it was working and it eventually cooked his arm from the inside out. Doctors and dentists don't know what they're talking about, only care about getting rich. Yeah, they all spend 8 years and $300k learning how to bulls people so they could get rich, right? Coincidentally, I just realized today that I never eat the very bottom of a banana. Growing up, I was always told not to eat it because that part held all of the toxins. Asked my friends about it. None of them ever heard such a ridiculous thing. Crap. Haha, I'm the same, but only 'cause the bottom is where the spider eggs are. Somehow, the food I didn't finish on my plate would make African kids die of starvation. I feel yeah. But it wasn't about the kids just dying but being appreciative and not taking advantage of the abundance that we have by being wasteful. My mom still firmly believes in the homosexual agenda and sees LGBT rights progress of the past few decades as moral decay. She threw away all our Disney VHS tapes when I was 9 because apparently the Disney Corporation is a big homosexual agenda supporter. She replaced our favorite movies with stuff she bought from Focus on the Family and Mormon family-friendly films. A bit of a downgrade, but with bonus brainwashing. There are few people she loathes more than Bill and Hillary Clinton, and they were also a big part of her gay agenda rants. She believes that when Bill was the governor of Arkansas, He knowingly sold HIV plus blood drawn from Arkansas prisoners to the Canadians. Also, perhaps obviously, anything related to HIV is also part of the gay agenda. None of her daughters were girly girls, but she spent our childhood doing a lot of gender policing of one of my sisters, trying to force her into dresses, combing and styling her hair, etc. That sister has indeed been seduced by the gay agenda, in that she is a lesbian. I'm convinced that my mom knew all along that this sister was gay, and it makes all the hateful crap she has spewed over the years so much worse. I do still love my mother and I know she's not a 100% awful person in her mind. All the hate is driven by love. There's a twisted logic to it, but her obsessive homophobia had a big part in destroying our family. You can imagine that the current political climate has not helped. My mom bought into the whole anti-vax deal for a while. As a result, I guess I believed in that for a while as a kid, but I dismissed it by the time I was in high school, so it didn't really affect me at all. My mother wouldn't let her kids accept the free fluoride treatments which were given to rural school kids in the 1960s and 70s. She said our daily use of a fluoride toothpaste was enough and that too much fluoride was a chemical exposure that shouldn't be trusted. So we were the only kids who sat in class singled out. I actually think my mother's resistance, right or wrong, taught me to think for yourself. Don't just accept authority and don't be afraid to take a stand, even if you are the only person. I forgot to add that my mother thought the government had some nefarious reason for pushing fluoride and putting it in drinking water. My parents prepared for the Y2K thing. We stored up canned beans and had a manual pump for water as backup, and owned enough land to garden if need be. When I asked what the worry was, it was that computers weren't programmed to have calendars that went into the 2000s, and that there was a possibility that transportation infrastructure, dependent on computers, would crash on the turnover. It ended up seeming pretty pointless, until I heard that it actually happened. To the Microsoft Zune, some decade later or so, a whole bunch of them crashed out when they hit a certain date, and were apparently hard to reset. But having parents who were practical preppers, and not paranoid preppers instilled into me a drive for practical preparedness today. Me and my wife always have at minimum a month's worth of food on hand, between canned goods, and dehydrated meals and nutrition bricks in bug-out bags in the truck. They've actually come in handy, and gives us confidence in rural New England where flooding or power outages can impact you greatly. So, mine was a case of Y2K prepping parents instilling a positive outlook on prepping. My grandparents installed a value for gardening when my grandfather all of a sudden lost his job and had a wife and 3 kids to feed. My fiance stockpiles batteries and flashlights and had been ever since Matthew. My mom always insisted that I always had to see the physical pill bottle before taking anything from anyone. She was 100% convinced everyone who handed me something that wasn't in the original bottle was poison and that I was going to die from it. People think it's weird when they just want something like some Tylenol and I hand them the bottle instead of 2 pills. I can kind of see a point here. They probably want to look at the dosage, or make sure you are taking the correct medicine, such as azing for Tylenol and somebody giving you aspirin instead and you are allergic to aspirin. That I could grow up and do whatever career I dreamed of and be successful. You have been visited by the hamster of joy. Comment I like chicken to live a happy and full of joy like the joy hamster life. Like and subscribe you magnificent person.